Welcome to Pedal Experiments and another The People Behind the Pedals episode with, I think it's fair to say, living legend of the pedal industry.
I don't know about that.
Oh, come on, it has to be said. Tom Cram from, I think you need no introduction at this point, basically, but yeah, from DigiTech, DOD, Spiral Electric Effects, the man himself, Tom Cram. Thank you so much, sir, for agreeing to be part of this. It's great to have you. There's a lot I want to ask. There's so many questions. I'm a huge fan of yours and your work and the incredible backlog of pedals that you've had a hand in over the years. There are some truly fantastic effects under your belt. I definitely want to. I could keep you on here for ages, probably for hours, but I'm going to try to whittle this down to only the kind of bullet points.
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's chronologically makes sense. Just go right back to the beginning. What was the first experience that you had using effects pedals?
So I started out on bass, and when I started out on bass, I didn't know how to play bass. It was very much a punk rock-ish beginning. Some friends were playing in a band, and they asked me to come play with them. So I didn't even know what effects were. And in some of our later trips to music stores, I started noticing these little boxes that they had, and so I kind of asked what they were. And that on one trip, one of the sales guys like, "Oh, you're a bass player. Bass players don't use this kind of stuff," that kind of thing. But over time, I kind of learned what pedals did. And then they were having a sale where they used to have a used room down in the basement. They were having a sale, and I picked up an MXR phaser. So this would have been probably 1983, 83 or 84, and that actually sounded great on bass. And then shortly after that, I got a Big Muff, and that sounded great on bass too. But at the time, I didn't quite understand fuzz, and so that my first introduction to fuzz was that I didn't like fuzz on bass. I ended up trading that, but later on, as I played more and more bass and started to understand some of the nuances, I started to pick up more pedals. The usual suspects, DOD 250, that kind of stuff, and I started playing guitar more, and then more pedals kind of came to the fore. Multi-effects, that kind of stuff. I ran a rack rig for over a decade. So from probably 94 to, I'm not even sure. I can't even remember. For almost a decade, I ran a rack when I was playing guitar, because I transitioned from bass to guitar. But yeah, so I've been exposed to pedals for a long time. Even when I was running a rack, I started getting into fuzz way back then. That would have been the late 80s and early 90s. And it wasn't really possible to run a fuzz into most rack devices, but I still had tons of fuzzes for the studio, for recording and stuff like that. And I would try to get my rack processors, the built-in distortions and stuff, to sound a lot more fuzz-like. So fuzz is kind of my first love when it comes to pedals, and everything else kind of just stems from there.
That's quite a journey to go from initially hating fuzz or pulling back from it, thinking, "Oh, this isn't for me at all," and then it always gets us in the end. Fuzz.
It does.
So
I know why now. I mean, in retrospect, I know why. First off, I couldn't play. Second off, I didn't know anything about intonation. And when you're on bass, at that time, it was really cool to have active pickups. And active pickups and fuzz don't play very well. So
of course,
those three combinations, plus going into a solid state amp, that's like all of these ones by themselves that kiss to death when it comes to fuzz, right?
Yeah, the cards are stacked against you.
Yep. Yeah, but once I started playing, passive electric guitars and stuff like that, and switching back more to passive basses, it all kind of makes sense.
Right. You see the light then. Did you try the same? What fuzz was it that you tried originally? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, so it was a Big Muff, and it was a triangle, Big Muff. I ended up trading that for a Fender Champ, but in fact, you can't see it behind me here, but on my speakers, on my playback speakers, I have all of the early fuzzes, but I have a triangle up there too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love the Big Muffs now.
Of course, you saw the light.
Yep. Or fell
Oh,
into
that's
the dark.
fantastic. Right with the rest of us, where you
Yep.
belong. Great stuff. Okay, so what led you then after that initial effects journey to the point where you're then building your own effects?
That's all modding. DOD and DigiTech are based in Salt Lake City, which is where I'm from, and I didn't realize that they were from here until much later. I got a DOD 250, and in the packaging it had the warranty information and that kind of stuff, and on there it said Riley Lane, Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm like, wait a minute. That's my hometown. And then for years after, me and my bass player at the time, we would go and apply at Digitech and DoD to get a job there. And we got turned down and got turned down year after year. And then finally I got hired in, that would have been, oh my God, 1996, I think. I got hired in 1996 and worked on the line for quite a long time. And then kind of worked my way up through the ranks, through multiple management changes and company shifts and all that kind of stuff until in 2010 I worked for DBX. I worked for the Pro Division for a long time, and then in 2010 they were advertising for an artist relations guy. And since I'd been in touring bands for years, I had a bunch of connections, so it kind of made sense. And so I shifted over from Pro Audio to work for Digitech and DoD again as artist relations. But that didn't last very long because as soon as they found out that I was involved with product development and had some pretty strong ideas about what should be done, they shifted me over into product development pretty quick.
Right, they recognised where your skills were better placed, or you'd be better suited for this department.
Yep. So that was about 2010-ish, and then I was fully in charge of Digitech and DoD about 4 years later.
Wow.
And that wasn't because I kicked ass or anything like that. That was just because of there were again during that period there were multiple shifts in management and multiple shifts in ownership, and I just happened to be the last man standing. And so when I got put in charge, I was just like, okay, I'm either going to get fired for doing what I want to do, or I'm going to get fired for doing what they want to do. And so I figured I'm just going to get fired for doing what I want to do.
Yeah, it's the lesser of two evils. That makes sense. I actually, now you're touching on that, it reminds me of there's an earlier interview I saw of yours going back now. I think it was on the Pedals and Effects channel.
Well, Juan's channel.
Yes, of course. I've watched that a few times over the years, I think, and again for this, I've watched it again recently, and great. Obviously, a fantastic channel. They're just a great bunch of guys, and great interview as well. And I remember you said something in that video. It's about 9, maybe 10 years old now. That interview I think you did on there. You mentioned that there was just yourself and one other person, pretty much, but the whole of Digitech were pretty much run by you two, you and Billy Clements.
Billy Clements.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that now that Digitech's back? Is he back as well? Or is it the two of you?
He's not. After we got canned in 2018 by Samsung, he retired. And so it's now, and so I don't work for Digitech and DoD anymore either. I'm working fully for.
Oh, really? Okay.
For Spiral, yeah. So
I
as of July. I'm still a consultant for them.
Okay.
But they haven't called me, so they probably don't need me to do anything. Plus, I've been super busy with Spiral, so it's been okay. It's been working out. But cool. As of July of this year, that was my last. July 1 was my last day at Digitech and DoD.
Oh wow! Okay, so this is definitely news to me. I think again, I had very little information to go on. I just assumed that you were right at the heart of things once more. And
no, so I've done a bunch of dev for them that will still bear fruit over the next couple of years.
Right.
But it just reached a point where. Well, so the way I've been describing it is that, once you become your own boss, it's really hard to be an employee again. And
Sure.
it was really hard for me to be an employee again because I was used to being able to take an idea from conception to completion and all the steps in between, and me being the central part of it. And that's not an ego thing. It's just me being able to drive it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
it's more about efficiency, right? I mean, just being able to, like, I've got an idea, let's just get on with it, let's get it done, and then, see it brought to, like you say,
that's exactly right. And so what happened with this time around is it's a whole different crew. I mean, it's a lot of guys from that are OG DigiTech and DOD guys, so they have their own opinions too. And so I wasn't really the driver anymore. And to be perfectly honest with you, I have on one hand I can be a part of a team, which is cool, and help other people see their vision come true, or I can go back to Spiral and see my vision come true. And to be honest, it was just no choice. Spiral. So
cool. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, I think it'd be a difficult decision, but also a clear decision as well, like what to do in that situation for most people. So yeah, fair play to you.
I'm still friends. I'm still friends with all the guys there, and in fact I talked to Jim, Jim Pennock just today. So it's not like there's any hard feelings or I cut it off, or anything like that. It's we're still bros. Yeah, because I can do that. I am known to burn bridges. I don't have a problem with that at all when warranted.
No, if they know what's good for them, they will keep your number and they will definitely come back to you at various points, I'm sure.
I hope so.
That automatically, that piece of information has changed a few questions I was going to ask you later on. Then, so
I it's honestly, I don't have, I have some. I don't really have an NDA, so I can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But cool. There's anything that has to do with like future development or anything, I can't talk about that. But I can probably answer most of your questions.
That's fine. I will. There are a couple of those types of questions, but also I'm very aware you get asked that kind of stuff a lot, so I also tried to kind of not dwell too much on that stuff.
That's okay. So. That's okay. I can song and dance it.
Okie doke. Well, I was going to bring up again, sticking with talking about DigiTech. I noticed it was they had a big anniversary, the birthday this year. Is it the 50th anniversary of? Well, certainly of DOD. I think DigiTech is 40 years, is it? 40 years this year of DigiTech. And then 50 years for both DOD and DigiTech together. Was there any celebration? Any kind of... was the occasion marked in any way over there?
Yeah, it was pretty low-key because it kind of snuck up on us, to tell you the truth. We were really busy. So the first part of last year, probably the first half, if not more, was all about getting stuff that had gone out of production back into production. So that kind of stuff isn't dev, and it's not fun. It's all communication and talking with OEMs and finding stuff. So we all had our hands full doing that for most of the first part of the year, and so it wasn't till well into the very first year of being up and running, we were like, oh yeah, we have an anniversary coming up, we should probably do something. And so dev on anniversary things started a little bit later. So the stuff that's kind of more anniversary-ish will be coming out later of this year. In fact, I know that they're on the cusp of releasing something near and dear to my heart very, very soon here. I've tried a couple of protos, and it's going to be cool. But yeah, so we did do a little bit of celebration. We went out to lunch, and we did some interviews and things like that. And then I think we have an interview planned with John Johnson and with David DiFrancesco. I'm not sure where that is yet. Jim's been working with a filmmaker to do kind of a video retrospective. I know that's still in process. So I'm sure all that stuff's going to hit towards the end of this year.
That'd be really cool. I'll look forward to that. That sounds like it'd be very interesting. Well, that kind of perfectly segues to my next question then, was what or are there any? I'm sure there are many. Any favourite particular landmark kind of moments over the course of Digitech and DoD's kind of
so many
over the years?
Yeah, there's a lot. So Rubberneck for sure. Rubberneck I feel like is kind of my crowning achievement. Even though it wasn't just me, that was a full team effort. That actually, so people don't really know this, but I drew out the Rubberneck's form factor on a napkin way like 5 years before it was even starting to be developed, and so I
Wow.
knew how I wanted it to be laid out. How we were going to get there was a whole different thing and a journey. And towards the end, it was such a complex product for us that it ended up being an all hands on deck kind of thing. So we had guys that worked for DBX working on it. We had guys that worked for Lexicon working on it. We had coders working on the micro. So yeah, that last month where we were trying to actually get it from that last little, it's always the last little percent, right? That's the hardest. But that was a full team effort to get that going. So, but yeah, definitely the Rubberneck, the Carcosa was a big deal for me. It was one of the few times that exactly what I wanted to make is exactly what ended up being made. Because usually there's stuff that happens along the way. You have to make different decisions, and some things don't work like you planned, and so you have to compromise a little bit. But the Carcosa was one of those weird things where every time we hit what would be considered to be a roadblock, it ended up being, our solution ended up being better than what it was before. Right. So it just got better and better and better. So yeah, the Carcosa was a cool project. Let's see what else. The Freqout.
2 for 2 so far. Fantastic, both fantastic pedals.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely love both of them, and the Rubberneck as well. Just before we get on to any other pedals you want to talk about, the Rubberneck. I don't know if you're even aware of this. I actually started an entire subreddit just dedicated to that pedal.
That's so cool.
When I got that, obviously the guitarpedals subreddit is a big part of my life, and I've been on that for years. But when the Rubberneck came out, there was so much. Everybody was talking about it. There was so much activity online talking about that pedal in the forum. I just thought, you know what? Let's just have our own subreddit just for conversation about this pedal.
I'm gonna have to go check it out. That's super cool.
Yeah, that was great. I don't actually know who it was. I don't know who. I can't remember off the top of my head if they actually gave their real name, but somebody involved in the development of the pedal basically got in touch and said, "I actually was a key player in designing that pedal."
I bet you it was Parker.
Oh, okay, could very well. Yeah, I don't remember now who it was, but I ended up sticking as a post, basically an AMA with him on that subreddit. So for anyone watching, I'll put a link in the description for you, Tom. Obviously, if you want to, when this video goes up, you can check that out as well. But yeah, that was a really lively, interesting AMA that he did as well on that subreddit when it was initially first going. It's pretty quiet these days, as you can imagine. It's gotten quieter over the years, but there's still the occasional post on there, and still people discovering new ways to use that thing. It's really an absolute masterpiece, that thing.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll let Parker know too, because he would be very, very flattered and happy about it, because he put a lot of work into it too. It's one of those things where once we got past the initial challenges of that were mostly not technical, by the way. It was mostly just getting people convinced that this would be a cool thing to do. Once we got past that, and everybody started kind of working on their bits, it became a work of love for everybody, because everyone wanted to see this happen. Everyone wanted to see it succeed. Even though the impetus was my idea, it stopped being purely about what my idea was. Pretty quickly, everyone just kind of grabbed the bull by the horns and just went. So it turned out super cool. And I've said before that the idea of the Rubberneck was I wanted a really cool full-featured analog delay. So it was a very selfish impetus, and I couldn't find exactly what I wanted out there in the market. But as soon as everybody started working on it, again, kind of like the Carcosa, every single piece of input from all these other people and players and stuff just made it better and better and better. And I know there's folks out there that hate it. And you know,
I don't want to know those people.
So, and I'm okay with that, to tell you the truth, because there are people out there that hate the Carcosa too. And the way that I kind of look at it is, both of those pedals, I feel like, have a very have a distinct point of view, and a character of their own. And when you make a pedal like that is very, very distinct in what it wants to do, you're going to alienate some people.
That makes sense, but still, I find it hard to believe, though. Even so, because the Carcosa is, I thought my initial impression of using it when I first tried it was how incredibly versatile it is. It's literally, you can sculpt that thing to be whatever you want it to be. So I can't understand how anybody could be like, oh yeah, this isn't for me. Like, well, make it, turn some knobs, play around.
Yeah,
with
maybe you can find what you're looking for. Well, I mean, if you're a muff guy, you're not going to be happy with the Carcosa. There's no two ways around it. It won't do anything muff. I mean, if you're an octave fuzz guy, you're not going to be happy with it. And it can be brash too. That's the thing, is it's a big hammer. So you can make it sound really ugly, which, you know, it has become more popular over time. So at the time when the Carcosa came out, don't get me wrong, there were some crazy noisemaker fuzzes. I mean, look at anything that Ben over at Dwarfcraft made.
Right, yeah.
There were some crazy fuzzes, but something noisy and something that could be harsh from a bigger manufacturer like DOD, I don't think anybody had done it before.
Right.
And so I can see how a guy who was looking for, you know, maybe a Boss FZ1, you know, plugs in the Carcosa and is like, holy crap, what is this?
No, that's fair. Or maybe it's the hate is coming from people using active pickups. Maybe,
well, you know, that's a good point. You know, I know for a fact that happens. You know, I still see it, like on TGP. There'll be a guy who says, I hate fuzz, and, you know, he's using a super strat with EMGs and, you know, running into an orange or some shit like that.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, it's going to sound weird.
You're like, I've been there. I know what this is. I know what the real problem is. That's fantastic. So you got the Rubberneck, Carcosa. Any other significant effects come to mind? I think that was a crowning achievement right there.
I think the Freqout counts.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
The story I have on that is that my contribution to the Freqout was in their team effort. So the Canada guys worked on this. Some of the DBX guys worked on this. My contribution was the name, the graphics, and when the very first initial impetus to make it, I had written, I had like a list of pedals of not really pedals, but kind of like categories that I wanted to explore, and I had written on my list of things that said some kind of feedbacky thing, and so that was all. And one of the DBX engineers, he had the brilliant idea. So DBX had an algorithm called AFS, automatic feedback suppression. And so what it would do is it would go through and it would look for feedback spikes. So feedback is exponential. And so it's not easy, but you can identify when feedback is starting to begin by when a signal or a frequency starts to go exponential. And you can just grab it and pull it down. And so he had the idea to take that AFS algorithm and flip it in reverse. So as it identified a feedback frequency, it would accentuate it and make it so that feedback went into feedback. And so all that stuff was patented by DBX. And so that's how come no one else has come out with a Freqout, is because they can't. You know, it's patented by DigiTech and DOD. There's more to it than that. It's not just that. That's like the heart of it. But then the 3DB guys, that's the DigiTech Canada team. They took that initial idea of taking the AFS and turning it and reversing it, and then did a whole bunch more stuff to it. But yeah, the Freqout turned out so killer. Let's see what else. You know, it was my idea to split out the Whammy into Whammy subproducts to make the Whammy family.
Okay.
And so I'm really proud of that too, because on the face of it, a lot of people were worried that it would dilute sales of the Whammy to have all its different constituent components broken out. But
Right.
I had talked to so many guitar players who had said, if you would just do the detune of the Whammy as a pedal, or they would say, all I care about is octave up. I don't care what else. All that other stuff is just too much. I just want octave up. So I would talk to all these guitar players at different NAMM shows and out on the road and at shows, and they would say that if I only had this little slice of it, and so that kind of fed into the whole idea of what I think that there's I don't think we would dilute the sales of the Whammy by doing this. I think what would end up happening is expanding the user base, and that's what happened.
Right.
So,
and that's so rewarding as well. So sorry to interrupt.
Well, that's okay. I was just gonna say I wish I was smart enough to have thought of that myself, but that all came from customer feedback. So that wasn't some
smart thing. I would say the smart thing. You're doing yourself a disservice there. You're being too modest. The smart thing that you've done there is to listen to what customers actually want, and then just simply providing it to them. Like, so many times you see people not doing that, and it's infuriating as a customer. I just want this. Could you just please
just do the thing? Do the thing, man.
Just do the thing.
It's one of the actually I use this in some of my when I'm talking to internal people about how to talk to your customers and that kind of stuff. I actually use this as a bullet point, because I say that guitar players, I'm privileged as a pedal builder. I am never at a loss for ideas, because guitar players will constantly tell me what they want me to make. All I have to do is go listen.
Yeah, it's a great resource just to have so many people out there on the internet to pull ideas from and suggestions, and
to tell you to kill yourself it's either you're making a cool thing or go kill yourself.
I'm not sure about that slogan. That might need some work as a
I'm
business.
not sure that'd be a good marketing campaign.
Yeah, it might need some work, but the next three questions I got for you are all from friends of mine and moderators over at Guitarpedals, incidentally, as well. The first one just literally had all they contributed as a question was just Whammy 6, and that was it. That was all that they basically wanted me to ask you about. But as you've already, I guess you've already kind of covered the fact that future development things.
I can go into it a little bit. So, of course, there's going to be a Whammy 6. Of course,
wonderful.
When that happens,
very happy to hear that.
it only makes sense, right? I mean, but when that happens and what it's going to entail, I can't go into. Although I can say that I won't go into specifics, but there's like 5 things that guitar players have been asking for, primarily, that they'd like to see in a Whammy 6. And I can say that we probably won't hit all 5, but the major points of those 5 we will hit. It's
very exciting.
Normally, what happens is when you get customer feedback, you have to kind of sift it into stuff that's possible, stuff that's not possible. Then of the stuff that's possible, you have to go through and say, what makes sense, what is a pie in the sky thing, and what is actually something that we can totally do. And of that batch of, like I said, the 5 things, those are all things that we were like, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah,
awesome. You already committed yourself by saying there's no NDA involved here. So any hints?
I just have to be careful.
Any clues? Anything about the new one that you might be able to just leak out, or any tidbits? Any like one feature? Just like, is there one feature that we might be able to see in the next one?
Oh, let's see. I think I'd be safe. I'd be safe in saying that I believe that blend, I think, was like the number one thing that people have been asking for. And as far as I know, last place I left it, that was absolutely on the table.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I can definitely see that being a popular feature. That's awesome.
So the thing that gets weird with that is if you have a blend. So with the whammy, you have basically two sides. Well, you have two sides, and you have the detune stuff. But on the two sides, you have one that's the pitch shifting, then one side it's the harmony. And when you have a blend, the harmony becomes redundant, right?
Sure.
So going down that path, you'll likely see some stuff go away too.
Okay. Okay. So that's an interesting clue for anybody looking for extra information about the new pedal. Awesome. That's exciting news. I wasn't expecting anything at all on that one based on what you'd said earlier. So that's great. The next question is quite a long one, so bear with me. I might just have to read this one because it's
I'll
a
have a
lengthy question.
sip of liquid.
Yes, carry on. So, going back a few years now, the DigiTech X series led to the Hardwire series, which then led to, I don't even know the name of the series that came after that with the Polara and the Obscura and all of those. Did that have a name? That series?
No. And
just
I wish I'd come up with one. Yeah. So I call them DigiTech's digital single stomps, which is a terrible name for them. So,
but
I should have come up with the name for the series. I call them the Refresh, Next Generation, stuff like that.
Is there a series that we might be able to get any clues about? Maybe going from after that, refreshing again, like that series of effects that have kind of evolved over time.
Probably not.
Okay,
and but the probably is doing some heavy lifting there. So there's a technical issue. We can't get DNA to DSPs. Right. And so all of the Digitech single stomps, so that's Polara, Obscura, Ventura, Nautila, Dirty Robot, Cab Driver, those all use the DNA2. So pedals of that type that use a DNA2 chip will likely never be seen again.
Oh, now, that's a shame.
It's just the supply issues. We can't get those chips. But I would say, putting on my Digitech hat, I'm going to start using the Digitech Wii, the Royal Wii. We are fully aware of the impact that those pedals had on the market and how much people love them, and so I guess the way to answer the question is something along those same lines. Using some sort of a new DSP will absolutely happen. When that happens, I don't know. The stuff that I was working on when I left, I don't know what the state is after I'm gone. How what the timelines are, but of course we would work on some sort of next generation Polara. Of course we would work on a next generation Obscura. It just is being a huge technical hurdle because of the DSP problem. Right.
Yeah, that I can totally appreciate. That would be a pretty big hurdle to overcome. The one that I really, really want to see come back in some form or another is the Supernatural from the Hardwire series, because that I know it was a limited edition collaboration thing with Pro Guitar Shop and everything, and they're really hard to get hold of these days, and the prices are obviously sky high. But I've got one, and it's such an incredible sounding reverb pedal, and everything on there just absolutely nothing else I've tried comes close to so many of the weird, just unbelievably good sounding reverbs that are on that thing. So it would be awesome to have a newer, less delicate, or not delicate, that's the wrong word to use with the Hardwire pedal, but you know what I mean. I don't want to risk damaging it. I don't want to see anything go wrong with it or anything. So I would love personally to see a newer version of that brought somehow to life again.
I would too, and when I was making my list of what digital single stomps, again, terrible name. I should come up with something better than that. The Supernatural is absolutely on that list. I love it too. I use mine constantly, and so yeah, I would imagine that would be one of the first that came out of this, whatever this new series is going to be. But I don't have any. I don't know when, or I don't know where it would be on the list. It would be number one probably on my list, but we'll see. It's up
well,
to
that's because
the
you're
new
a discerning man of culture. That's why you're a smart guy. You know what's up. So many people love that thing though, and like I say, the price is being so crazy for them, obviously, and for the RV7 as well. For a long time, that was my entire reverb section. I had the RV7 into the Supernatural on my board, and that was basically they weren't going anywhere for ages. It was just those two huge pedals in the top left of my board, and that was between those two pedals, that was all the reverb I could ever possibly want. So if there was any kind of modern version of kind of smashing those kind of two into one pedal, that would be amazing. I've been on so many reverb pedal journeys to try and find something that will give me both worlds of crazy and traditional in one thing, and it's surprisingly hard to find a reverb pedal that does both of the crazy and more normal sounding.
Well, let me give you some hope. So anybody who's watching this, some hope. The big concern that I know a lot of people had, just from reading the forums and messages that I got, people were worried that since DigiTech and DOD got pulled away, and Lexicon is still with Samsung, and since Lexicon guys worked on the Supernatural and the RV7 and the Polara and that kind of stuff, there's a lot of worry about how our reverbs would sound with this new crew, and so the thing to look forward to is Jim Pennock, who is the general manager now. I mentioned earlier, he's one of the OGs of Digitech and DoD. He is extremely familiar with the Lexicon algorithm, and so he knows what he's doing when it comes to reverb. So any new product that comes out, any new reverb that comes out of Digitech and DoD, I am fully confident it'll be world class, because he knows how to do reverb.
That's great to hear. That's amazing. I remember being. I didn't know anything about Lexicon or anything like that when I got my RV7 back in the day. So going back a few years, obviously. When I picked that thing up for like £80 or something on eBay, and I just thought, I've not seen one of those before. That looks interesting, and it just immediately just blew my mind how good that thing sounded. And then seeing that little word on there, Lexicon, it's like, well, that sounds
what does
significant.
That mean?
What does that mean? Yeah. Doing some research, finding out, that's a big deal. So, that would be why. That'd be why it sounds so great. Okay, so that's great to hear. That's made my evening. That has to hear about that. Okay, so the third question that I had from a friend of mine, again asking about DoD, Digitech, and Spiral Electric effects. When it comes to those kind of three companies having obviously involvement in all three of those, are there any surprising differences in designing something for each of those companies? Things like parts selection or hardware manufacturing, etc.
That's a really good question, and a lot more complicated than it seems on its face. So I'm trying to figure out how to tackle it. A very quick answer would be they're all three very different animals. So the DoD stuff is a lot closer to Spiral as far as conception and completion, because it's analog. So the way that I think about pedals and the way that I tweak stuff, mod things that then turns itself into something new that then turns into a pedal, is very much the same course of action for Spiral as it is for DoD. The big difference is, of course, with DoD we have an OEM. So once we come up with the completed prototype and we know how it's going to work, we send it off to the OEM to actually make it. And so there's a handoff there. Then, of course, there's all kinds of checks along the way to make sure everything's being made correctly and all that kind of stuff, and it sounds like it's supposed to, blah, blah, blah. But with Spiral, I'm the guy. So,
right.
I have to be able to conceive it and execute it and then be able to build it myself. So that's an entirely different exercise. In some ways, it's easier, and in some ways, it's harder. So in the ways that it's easier is that if I want to figure out how something sounds, a mod to one of my pedals, I can just go into my shop and do it.
Right.
If it's something for DoD, it's a much bigger deal, because then I'm not just making a new version of something. I'm messing with. This is going to sound pompous, but in some cases, the 250 is a good example. I'm messing with a piece of history, so I can't just suddenly walk into the shop at DoD and say we're going to replace the diodes in the 250 with LEDs from here on out. No, that's not going to happen. There's expectations, right?
Right.
So it's different in that way, that there's a history there. With Spiral, it's cool because there is no history. I can do whatever I want. And that's one of the reasons why I switched to doing Spiral full time now, is because I like that. That's pretty awesome. Now, when it comes to DigiTech, it's a far different beast, because DigiTech is digital, and so that requires a team. So this actually harks back to the earlier question about the RV7 and the Polara and stuff. So in the early days of the DigiTech single stomps, when I was revamping those, we had what we called the tweaker. And what it was a graphical user interface that interfaced with the DSP for the DNA2. So I could actually create a digital algorithm for the pedal, and in fact I did. The Polara is due to me just messing around with the tweaker and getting it to sound the way I wanted it to. Then I would hand it off to Jim Lambrick, who was the DSP engineer that could translate the stuff that happened in the tweaker to the DNA2 code. And then that would get burned onto the chip, and then we would tweak it further from there. So everything on the Digitech single stomps leading up to, I think it was the Dirty Robot. So Polara, Obscura, Nautila, Ventura. I would say easily 90% of those sounds are sounds that I made in the tweaker.
Okay.
So it was just me. Now, that changes when you get into more complex stuff like the Whammy stuff and multi-effects and things like that. That requires good coders, which is I am not. I'm a hack when it comes to analog stuff, and I'm a total hack when it comes to any code. I don't know the damn thing about it. I can tell you how it's supposed to sound, but how to make that happen in the digital realm, I have no idea. So that's where the answer to your friend's question gets more complicated. When it comes to Digitech and Digitech specifically, you have to hand off. Well, so what you have to do is you have to define what the pedal is supposed to be and how it's supposed to work and how the UI is supposed to work, how it's supposed to sound, all that kind of stuff, way, way ahead of time. Because you're going to end up, you basically have to complete the pedal before the pedal even starts being made. And then that gets handed off to the coders. Then they code all the stuff. Then you refer back to them, that kind of stuff. But then, you're basically making it in stages for Digitech. And it's involving multiple teams and stuff like that. So it's a lot more complicated.
It sounds there's a lot involved. Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah, especially when you get into like some of the crazier multi-effects and stuff like that. I mean, so a good example is when Billy and I worked together on the RP360 and 360 XP. We worked on the UI for that. I want to say for 6 months. Yeah, it was at least 6 months.
Wow.
And there were still tweaks that happened after that too. So, for multi effects, you gotta work out. We would do what's called paper prototyping. by the way, which is you basically draw out the UI on how you envision it, and then you work with a team of people and go through and say, okay, so if I do this, what do we expect is going to happen? And then you write that down and say, okay, then that means this LED comes on and you see this on the screen, that kind of stuff. And so for every stage of the multi-effect, we paper prototyped all the way through it. And that's a huge amount of work. So it's a very, very, very different process.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, thanks for covering all that. That's I'm sure he's going to
hopefully
get a kick
out
of that. Yeah, I'm sure it did. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure he's going to be chuffed with that answer. I actually realised there's a couple more questions on it. The next two questions I've got are also from friends of mine, and I think I got confused before. These two are These two are from my one-time fellow moderators on the guitarpedals subreddit. So shout out to them.
Okay.
Okay. So again, this is quite a long one. According to one now legendary argument on the subreddit guitarpedals, a few years back, and I quote, "The DigiTech Jamman SoloXT outmatches and outspecs the RC3 in every conceivable way." That's the quote. It's something of a bit of a meme on the on that subreddit. I was going to ask, with the recent new release of the Jamman Solo HD,
yep,
is there any chance that it outmatches and outspecs the RC5?
So
just to feed the meme.
that's another tough question too, because mostly because of my ignorance.
It's mostly a tongue-in-cheek question, to be fair.
When it comes to specsmanship, the new DACs in the HD, at the very, very least, match the RC3. But as far as the feature set is concerned, I honestly don't even remember what's in the RC3, and I can barely remember what's in the Jamman. I do remember, from working on the HD just before its release, it was a reminder of how much stuff that pedal could do. It is jam packed. So let's say for the meme that of course
yes,
it outmatches.
I'll have to send you the link to the original interaction that went down several years ago on there, because it was just absolutely incredible. It was that initial comment and then the reply that came. It was about a mile and a half long. Like the wall of text reply that came in response to that simple, straightforward opinion it's gone down in history. It's just been copied and pasted and brought back in so many interesting and funny ways. Yeah, you'll get a kick out of it, I'm sure.
Okay.
But, the next question I've got is also a very good one from my fellow demoer Megan. The DOD Looking Glass Overdrive was designed in a collaboration with Shoe Pedals, a relatively small pedal company by comparison.
That's correct.
Would there be any possible chance, do you think, of a future partnership with any other smaller builders in the future? And if so, who would you want to work with?
So, that's a bit tougher of a question. With Spiral, Christopher from Shoe and I worked together again on the Red Spiral drive channel. So he and I have collaborated since DigiTech and DOD. Now, my first blush reaction would be to just say, of course there would be collaborations. But the problem is I was the one driving that. The collaborations that happened were because they were my friends. I went and talked to Mark, and I went and talked to Christopher, and I went and talked to no one really knows this, but I talked to Ben and Louise from Dwarfcraft. I talked to Derek from DB Instrument Amp. This has become more common knowledge, but I was working with Endeavour for a while too on a possible collaboration. So all the drive to make that happen was through me, and I'm not there anymore.
Right.
So I would like to believe the success of those collaborations, and to be honest with you, they were fun. So the fun of those collaborations, I hope, gets brought back with whoever ends up doing my job over there. But I don't know that.
Fair enough.
It's not something I've actually thought about. So this is a good question, because I would say without somebody driving that like me, I don't think it would happen. Because it's really counterintuitive, right? It's you're technically you're collaborating with your competition, and so it takes somebody who doesn't give a shit about that kind of stuff to make it happen.
I mean, from what I know, I'm not. I don't consider myself part of that corner of the industry or the community. But from what I know, from being good friends with people who are, it's an incredibly collaborative and welcoming industry, community of people. So I can imagine that there's got to be a lot of interest and enthusiasm there amongst various builders to actually work together and share ideas.
And you're absolutely right. So that's the spirit that happened in, is because that's my since my background is in modding and more from the boutique realm. That collaborative spirit, I was trying to tap into that and bring that into a larger company, which is contrary to how most companies like that work. It's usually top down, not bottom up. And
sure.
And so for a bottom up action like that to happen again, it would be very, very difficult.
Right. That's understandable. I can appreciate why that would be the case. But yeah, great answer. I appreciate that. This is kind of my way of asking a question without asking it. The obvious question. Have you ever not been asked about bringing back the space station in an interview?
I honestly can't. I think in every single interview I've been asked about it, pretty much. It's understandable. Yeah, it's totally understandable.
This kind of ties back in with what I was saying earlier about certain companies, that listening to people crying out for something.
Yep, and it's I don't resent it, and I don't get mad about it. What I do get annoyed by is there's a contingent of people who think that we're not making the space station because we're dicks and we don't want to make something that everyone's going to love. That's not the case at all. There are some very serious technical hurdles. And another thing to keep in mind too is back when this first started being talking about, when it was DigiTech and DOD was still part of Harman, which was part of Samsung. There was a company history there. There were people who worked there that were there when the space station failed the first time. Right. So there was a strong internal resistance to doing something like that people just don't understand unless you're in it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to explain. Now that's not the case. It's a new Cortec owns them now. It's a new crew. Everyone in that new crew loves the space station, so the odds of it happening now are greater than it ever has been in the past. But the thing to remember is there's a serious technical hurdle there. The DSP doesn't exist anymore, just like the DNA2 doesn't exist. And the code for that DSP, it was a DSP that was made for only in Japan, and it was a proprietary code. So it's there are guys who code who know enough to know that you can usually take a code and then port it over. But when you have a code that is its own proprietary code that has no antecedent and no precedent, there's no way to port it.
Okay.
So there are some technical things there. Every single algorithm and every single effect in the space station on any new platform would have to be made from scratch.
Right. So that was going to be my next question, to be honest. You read my mind. You beat me to it. I was going to say it's the only way to read the original code. But yeah, I'd heard you mention in other interviews that that code, the original algorithms are all lost and gone forever probably. But yeah, that's disappointing to hear. But also, I was going to
let me stop you there. Let me give you a little glimmer of hope because the code is not lost. The code still exists. It's just really freaking hard to read, and it's on. It exists on the machines that it was coded on back then. So go back to 1993. So you're talking about that. What would that be? Would that be a Windows?
The original Windows. What was that even called? Like the very first.
But those machines exist. By the way, those machines exist. Those
Okay.
machines have the code. Jim has actually cracked it open and looked at the code. He just doesn't know what he's looking at.
Oh wow.
It's,
Okay.
it's
Well,
all
that's interesting.
proprietary, and it's so. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's probably more of a strong statement. He would have to figure out what he's looking at, which is
Right.
not impossible. It's just quite difficult.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
it's like,
there's
I
a
can
glimmer.
imagine-
There's a glimmer of hope.
I know absolutely nothing at all about any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, in my head, I'm like, just it's there.
Just make
do
the
it.
thing!
Just do the thing. Yeah, come on. What are you playing at? So yeah, I know it's not anywhere close to being that simple. But yeah, still, so as someone that never got to appreciate or enjoy the original, and every now and again I'll have a little look around online to see if I can find a good deal on an old unit. Yeah, it's eluded me up until now, but I would love to try one at least at some point if I can make friends with somebody who has one.
So the other caveat I would give on that is that, and again, this is kind of a Tom ethos.
Right.
I'm not sure if it has trickled down to the new crew at DigiTech and DOD, but personally, I have zero interest in doing any reissues of any type.
Okay.
So, and I've said this before in interviews, but reissues, when you're talking about a strict reissue where it's just like it was made in 1990 or whatever, I don't care about that kind of stuff. It's that holds no interest to me. So if somebody is saying make the space station exactly as it was in 1993, I can tell you right now it'll never happen. That's never going to happen. Now, making a space station that is up to date, making a space station that has some new features on a new DSP, something like that, absolutely I'd be interested in something like that. And I'm sure the crew at DigiTech is also interested in something like that.
I think everybody would. Yeah, I was going to say that's that myself included. That's very much what I'm excited by as well. When you get something that is just a straightforward, one for one clone of something that previously already existed, I just think, who cares?
Whatever.
It doesn't particularly interest me. There has to be at least something about it that's different or sets it apart in some way or is an improvement on the design to the original. So whether even if it's just making it smaller, more compact, or adding top jacks or whatever, if it's just something basic like that, that'll do. I'll be happy with that. But obviously
the world's moved on, right? The world has moved
exactly.
on, and new things become standard and stuff like that. So you have to take that into account.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that there's some purist out there right now who's screaming, give me my original space station. Sorry.
Tough. It's not going to happen. Save up. Buy one. Yeah, if you want it bad enough, go and pay whatever they go for on Reverb or whatever these days.
I think I saw one the other day that was up there for like $5 or something like that. So
yeah,
not status, not Klon type. Prices,
no, not quite. But you never know. You never know. You might get that way one day. You never know. Okay, so getting back on track then, slightly deviating, going off on my own personal wondering. Is there a particular pedal that you've had a hand in designing over the years that you think is possibly underrated or underappreciated by the masses? You think, that was so good. Why isn't anybody talking about that?
Ventura.
Great pedal.
Ventura
Absolutely
vibe.
Fantastic pedal.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like the graphics on it, and so that may have hampered it. But there's a lot of people that don't like any of the graphics. So that there are people who don't like the DOD graphics, which are about as simple as basic as it gets. So I'm not sure if that's the case. But I was never a vibe guy, but working on the Ventura turned me into one. And so my goal with the Ventura was to make a vibe that I would like, that I would put on my pedal board. And so the tack I took with that was I wanted a really cool rotary, because I love rotary. And I wanted a pitch vibe, because I'm super into Boards of Canada. and I'm super into some of that lo-fi stuff where you get some of that tape crinkle type of sound, old VHS type of stuff. And with a pitch vibe, if you put that at the end of your chain, you can get some of that Boards of Canada tone. And you look at companies like Chase Bliss, and they have multiple pedals that kind of do that same kind of pitch vibey stuff, with a different point of view, which is awesome. But I kind of felt like with the Ventura, I captured some of that Chase Bliss energy, but also some of that Boards of Canada energy, some of that lo-fi stuff. So basically not doing a strict vibrato, but having some options to be able to do some pitchy stuff, as well as some rotary stuff. And it didn't catch on. So we sold plenty of them, but not as much as like the Obscura or anything like that. And and to talk about vibrato, the vibe side of that option on there, we had an original Shin vibe that we used to model.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just some algorithm that we pulled out of our butts. We made an algorithm based on a vintage Shin that we had. And so it has, when you're on the vibe side, it has that kind of that lopsided asymmetrical thing going on that took a long time to get right. And so we put a lot of love in that pedal. And I think it's pretty underappreciated. And then this actually leads me to another thing too, that, a lot of people, there's two parts to this. So a lot of people don't understand that the DigiTech single stumps, so Polara, Obscura, etc., those are actually a continuation of the hardwire. They should be viewed as a hardwire part 2. They were an update to the hardwire line. So that's part 1. And part 2 is the people who do understand that, they tend to think that all I did was take the algorithms from the hardwire and bung them over into the DigiTech single stumps. And that's not the case. In the Polara, that is largely true.
I was just going to say, surely the Polara is the exception to that.
Yeah, the exception to that is the Polara, because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. It was the first pedal I worked on. It was the first time I used the tweaker. I also didn't know what the market would expect. In my head, I was thinking, do I want to change this radically, or do I want to keep it pretty close to the original and just do some small tweaks? And so I didn't know the answer to that. So I stuck close to the original and only did some small tweaks, and I changed one algorithm. I swapped out the gate for Halo, the gated for Halo. So the Polara is the exception to that. Everything else, I tweaked. Everything else. So while it is a successor to the hardwire, it's also a true, I believe, and this is probably some self-serving ego bullshit, but I believe it's an improvement. So,
yeah, no, it's a fantastic pedal. I bought one recently. It's somewhere behind me. Oh, there it is. It's right here. I always forget how heavy this thing is as well. It absolutely weighs a ton. But yeah, it's for something so small and compact.
Yep. That's another thing interesting to talk about there too. Is that the weight of that was the result of a lot of discussions, by the way, because at the time, at the time I shifted DOD over to aluminum to save weight, and and so when we were changing over the Digitech stuff to the Polara Obscura and stuff, I wanted to do aluminum for those too. But the powers that be at the time felt like aluminum felt cheap. It was too light.
Oh, okay.
And so it's actually, I consider it to be one of my failures, is the fact that the Digitech single stomps were cast out of zinc instead of aluminum, because I wanted them to be aluminum.
Interesting. I mean, from a marketing point of view, I suppose it does kind of make you feel like, ooh,
yeah, it's a brick.
There's a lot of tone in here. Like you feel all the tone that's going on in this thing. It's quality.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a Les Paul. Proper unchambered, solid, vintage Les Paul. You've got one of those strapped around your shoulders if you've got one of those. I mean, you've got a few behind you. I'm guessing there's got to be some heavy ones amongst them.
There are. In fact, I've actually been trying to find. I've been trying to find a light one. I actually was a proponent of the heavier Les Pauls, the better.
Right.
And then Ford Thurston, who was our clinician for a while, he bought a 50, I want to say 56. I'm not exactly sure, but it was a 50s gold top Les Paul.
Beautiful.
Just beat to hell. Beautiful, beautiful guitar. And he let me play it at a NAMM, and that thing weighed like 7.5 pounds, and it was the best sounding Les Paul I have ever played. And so just that one guitar blew the whole heavier Les Paul myth, right out of the water.
Right.
And so, I've got a couple of 10-poundish Les Pauls, and I've been on the hunt for something around 8 pounds because I don't think weight is the thing.
No, I'm totally with you. One of the we're going on a little bit of a tangent or a detour here slightly, but talking about Les Pauls. I'm away now. One of the best Les Pauls I have ever played in my life, and I've played quite a few, and I've never seen another one anywhere, even online. They're so rare. It was a Gibson Les Paul Smartwood standard, and it's basically like a limited edition kind of range that they did in like the late 90s, I think 98, 99 or something like that, and they're all basically like the whole thing was the range was made out of exotic woods, so they were all different exposed wood grain. It was very, very natural kind of feeling and looking,
open grain
guitars.
Kind of satin stuff.
Very much so, yeah. And the one that I tried in this music shop in Banbury in Oxfordshire, where my nan used to live. They had one in the corner, and I'd never seen one before, and I was like, wow, that looks absolutely amazing. Can I have a go on that, please? So the shop owner brought it down for me, turned it sideways in profile to hand it to me, and I was like, whoa, what the hell? It was literally just tiny. It was like half the thickness of
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, they had that smaller,
so light. Yeah, it was incredibly light. I was like, wow, this is like a Strat or a Tele or something. This is incredible. And yeah, absolutely sounded and played wonderfully. It was absolutely spectacular, that guitar. And yeah, it was obviously, I was like 16 or 17 or something at the time, I think. So yeah, it was way out of my league back then.
Mm-hmm.
And now probably, but I've always looked out for one and never seen another one anywhere. But as far as lightweight, great sounding Les Pauls go, that's one I can recommend if you ever find one. There's a lot of studios around. You might see the occasion. I've seen the occasional Smartwood studio, but I've never seen a standard. And
Smartwood standard.
Yeah.
Well, let me hip you to one of my other secrets here that I probably shouldn't do, but I'm going to anyway. So this Les Paul right here, this is a classic from 2014. It has the anniversary, right there. So they didn't make a whole bunch of these, and they're not actually sought after by collectors because they were the Robo Tuner year. So they have the Robo Tuners, and the other thing that these don't have is they don't have the nibs. These are full size frets, so they go over the binding.
I prefer
love
massively.
These things. Yeah, I love these.
That's the one thing I don't like about a lot of Gibsons is when they come up on the end of the frets and it's like you try to bend and it just like catches sometimes and you're like
Yeah. So 2014. So the so Kluson. I'm going to go to the tuner. So Kluson makes Revolution lockers. I'll flip it over so you can see them. They're just drop in. So you can take out the Robo Tuners. So you can find these for cheap because no one wants them. So you can pop in Klusons. They have the full size frets, and this one has a weird preamp guy right here. That's a boost, but it's the whole diameter here is the same as the whole diameter for the knob. So you could actually pop this out and pop in, a hand wired harness. But you can find these guys for just over $1,000 all day long, and they rule.
Thanks for the heads up. That's good to know.
Like I said, I probably shouldn't have said anything because now all the ones I've been looking at are going to get blocked. But
well, you can say now that you've got one. It's okay to kind of let everyone else know when you've already got one yourself. That's fine. I can just keep this bit of the video out of the video.
You can chop this part out.
I'll keep this
I've been
information.
I've been trying to find a 2014 anniversary gold top. They don't exist. I found a few of the 2014 anniversary ebony ones. So I'm probably going to pick up one of those before the word gets out, because they're great guitars.
So are you pretty much a straightforward Gibson kind of fan?
No, I'm actually a Gretsch guy. I'm
really?
a Gretsch dude.
Nice.
Yeah. I have a back there on the rack. I've got my silver jet and a black duo jet. It's actually a power jet, and I love that guitar.
They do make some great guitars.
Name.
They are great. I don't actually have any Gretsch. I don't think I've ever owned a Gretsch, but my best mate is a big fan. He's had a couple of them, and every time I've ever played his, they're just I just think, why don't I have one of these? This is fantastic.
Well, Gretches are funny. The Gretches are weird because they are such a quintessential '50s guitar.
Yeah.
So everyone has thinks rockabilly, they think country, they think skiffle and stuff like that. But Gretches with Filtertrons, they're rock machines, man. A Gretsch with Filtertrons through a Marshall, that's the shit. That is the tone right there, as far as I'm concerned. So that's Malcolm. That's
100%.
That's Mal, man.
That's right there. That's the tone, isn't it? Yeah. That's what more do you want? Well, my mate, my best mate's amp of choice is a Vox AC30, or I think he's got an AC15 actually. It might be AC30, but yeah, his Gretsch into a Vox. You can imagine. I don't stand a chance. Like whenever I've tried playing with him in a band, it's like, there's absolutely nothing that I can do to. I've just got the mids. That's all I can do. Is like you turn up the
everything
mids.
Everything else is the Gretsch.
Yeah, push the EQ pedals. Center dials like way up, just to try my best to try and be heard. But yeah, he's got all of the top end to himself with that combo. It's it's tough to beat. Okay, that little detour slightly into guitars.
I'm always happy to talk about guitars, man.
Same. I mean, it's everything. It's guitar adjacent, isn't it? All of everything we love. Okay, so getting away from your own pedals for a second, or several. I always ask every pedal builder that I get a chance to speak to. I want to think of 5 particular pedals that are not your own that you really admire or love, think are the best.
That's a great question.
It's a tough question. And
it's not tough because I'm not sure I can narrow it down. I've got so many from other builders that I love.
That's why it's tough.
Well, you know what? I've got most of them here, so I can just grab them and show you.
Oh, please do. Please do.
So Mark from Black Arts, he has the Lester.
Okay.
This is my favorite muff style pedal. So it's known on the internet as a muff with a Baxendal EQ. I've talked to Mark about it, and it's not actually a Baxendal EQ. It just kind of acts like one. It's an EQ, a tone that he created, is proprietary to him. But this is an awesome pedal. Where's my Chase Bliss? It's the Generation Loss. I've got it around here somewhere. I love that pedal. My Generation Loss I've used quite a bit. For the most part, a lot of Chase Bliss stuff is a little too subtle for me. When I step on a pedal, well, I'm a fuzz guy, so when I step on a pedal, I expect it to be brrr, in your face.
Yeah,
and a lot of their stuff is a lot more subtle than that. But I found a use for the Generation Loss on all kinds of stuff, mostly in tracking. I don't think I'd ever use it live. But when I'm tracking it, I want a little extra, wobble, a little extra degradation, want to add some mood to it. I love that pedal.
Fantastic.
Let's see. The shoe pedals. Shoe pedals. Probably. So, give me a second here.
Yeah, go for it.
You see my butt as I walk around here. Christopher. Oh, let me see if I can get the camera back. My camera has this newfangled AI.
It's following you, yeah.
Yeah, it tries to track me.
It's impressive.
So Christopher from Shoe doesn't build very much anymore, but his Robert, this pedal, is killer. So it's kind of It kind of has a buzz around character, but it's not a buzz around circuit. So if you're a buzz around fan, this guy is awesome. See if you can find one. Or see if you can talk him into making pedals again. Let's see what else. Oh, the Friedman. Friedman IRX.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of that right now. I've changed the tubes in mine, but I've been using that quite a bit. They just did a software update just recently that is really good. The low end is greatly improved, and I really dig mine. I'm on 4, aren't I?
I think that's 4, yeah, so far.
Okay, so I barely even scratched the surface because number 5, I'm going to say the Tonex. So I've got the Tonex here too, and so I'm not sure that counts as a pedal.
I mean, it's an effect, right? It's close enough. I mean, I would say it counts. If you want it to count, it can count.
So the thing that's cool about the Tonex, so let me start off by saying that almost everything about IK Multimedia, I don't like. They're like the perfect representation of everything I don't want DigiTech and DOD or Spiral to ever be. You know, they're a closed. They're kind of a closed system. They're a company that does audio products that happen to stumble into some guitar stuff. That they're not friendly to to other companies. The list just goes on and on. How they present themselves, that kind of stuff. I've heard a lot of negative opinions and
experiences with that company in general. So yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah. So I gotta put a caveat on there because I'm not a fan, but the Tonex frickin' rules. It's awesome. I'm a dyed in the wool amp guy. Mics and amps, I love that combination. And the stuff I'm working on with my band right now, most of it is a mic and an amp, but the Tonex has been worming its way in. On the last few tracks, I've had a couple of guitar tracks that are just Tonex, and so I modeled my AC30. And so it's not like I pulled some stuff off of their what are they Tone Net. There's a creative name for you. So I'm being pretty disparaging of IK Multimedia.
No,
I feel bad.
It's refreshing.
Yeah. You put tone in front of it, and it becomes a guitar player thing. So Tone Net, yeah, really creative there, guys. But yeah, so it's not like some stuff that got pulled off of Tone Net. It's my amp. I modeled or captured my amp, and so on some days when I'm I just had the guy mowing the lawn out there, and so when I'm recording, I can't have the lawnmower coming through the track, and so on days like that, I'll use the Tonex, and it sounds great.
Fantastic. That's a really interesting inclusion on that list. That's I would never have thought to include that in like a list of my own. Like if I was putting my own top 5 together, it would be probably days before I started thinking like, yeah, of course, like amp list.
Well,
things.
Okay, I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to break the rules. Number 6.
Okay.
So number 6, the Caroline Meteore. I love that pedal, and Philippe is such a cool dude too. But and Shigeharu too. And I'm breaking more rules. So I just want to do a bunch of Caroline, pedals because there's the pizza, the Hawaiian pizza that is killer too. So I love his stuff.
It's amazing. You're the second person actually when I've asked. Since I think this is the 7th episode I've done of these interviews, and one of the previous ones I did, that one of the pedals they suggested was the Meteore. So yeah, it's clear. It's a sign. I need to get myself one of these pedals.
Yeah, you got to get one. It's totally cool.
The universe is telling me I need to get one.
So there's. I love pedals with a point of view. And whether it works with my stuff or not, at least somebody had the balls to put it out. And so that's one of the things I really dig about Philippe is that he puts out stuff that he wants to. That doesn't mean he doesn't. If somebody says if enough of his crowd says he wants the rat or something, he'll probably do something cool with a rat circuit. But he puts out shit that he wants to, and I think that's one of the most important things from a boutique end of things is you listen with one ear to the trends and you follow your muse with the other, and it's got to be a combination of the two, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. That's a really good way of looking at things. I think that's a good ethos.
It's probably not the best as far as business is concerned, but you know.
True. Okay, well, I think we've covered quite a lot in this hour plus time we've been able to spend together. Before I go, one last thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. Just a promo moment. Your band you touched on already just now. Yeah. The Flat Earth. Everybody should check out your band, your
musical output. Yeah,
yeah. So I've checked out some of them, and there are some really cool tracks on there that I've listened to already.
Thank you. So I kind of have to. I don't want to go too far over time here and get too discursive.
No, it's fine.
But the Flat Earth actually came about due to a conversation I had with David Torn. On all the bands I've ever been in, I've been the vocalist, and it's usually been a rock band, and I sing and play guitar. And I kind of fell out of love with singing a few years back, and it was causing me all kinds of artistic angst. As a fellow guitar player, I'm sure you've stumbled on those same things that where these changes happen that you don't really have control over, and you're not sure how to respond to them. So I had a long talk with David on the phone about art and what it means and the stuff that I was going through as a vocalist, and he gave me some great advice that I promptly ignored. And what it did is talking to him made me think about things in a different way, which was very, very valuable. He led me on a road to realize that I had been boxing myself in with expectations that were artificial. And so that realization led to a creative, boom, I guess. I'm not sure what you would call it, but I wrote a bunch of songs. It was what came out of that, and with no expectations for vocals. And so just to give fair warning to the people who are watching this, the Flat Earth has no vocals. It's instrumental. And that is purely because I just don't dig vocals anymore.
That's fair. I was going to mention that actually. That everything that I'd listened to was instrumental, and at no point listening to it did I feel like this could really use a vocal on it, or there's lyrics missing or anything. It's like it literally just sounds fantastic. Like there's some really great stuff in there. In fact, I was going to ask specifically about the one song, India Ink. There's a really, really nice sitar bit in there. There's like a kind of background kind of riff that kind of plays throughout at different points. Where did that effect come from? Is that from?
Hang on a second. It's this guy right here.
Is it what I think it is, or is it something else? Oh, it's from one. Oh, wow! You've got a Dan Electro. Oh, no, it's not a Dan Electro.
It's not a Dan Electro, so it's even worse. It's a rogue. It's a rogue copy of a Dan Electro.
Oh, wow!
Electric sitar. So
I didn't even know. I didn't even know there were copies of that thing. I've wanted one of those for so long. Like you've no idea. Like
yeah. So
cool
I don't think these are made anymore. And they're really kind of crappy. I mean, it's like Formica, so it is very much like a Dan Electro.
Right.
But yeah, that's what you're hearing is this guy right here.
Oh, that's awesome. So no, I think Dan Electro have recently. I think they've recently reissued that instrument, for lack of a better word. It's not really a guitar, is it? But you know what I mean. It's kind of a lot of things going on in one thing there. But yeah, no, I think they reissued it recently. The original one of those. And yeah, they're quite expensive. I think for me, they're a little bit spendy.
Well, so that's the weird thing is I see the prices on these online, and I don't think people realize that they're terrible.
I don't care.
They're truly terrible. I mean, the neck is like a one piece, almost balsa wood with no skunk stripe. I don't think there's a truss rod. I mean, the body is hollow and it's Formica. It's the two tuners are just the worst. They're like Kluson wannabes, but definitely not Klusons. So yeah, but it sounds so cool.
Yeah, you're not really doing much to dissuade me from wanting to get one anyway. So I still really want one, and it sounds great in that track that I listened to. So yeah.
Oh, thanks, man.
Anyone wanting to listen to Tom's band, The Flat Earth, please check out in the description all of the links and various extra bits and videos and stuff will be in there. So yeah, please do all check the description below to find links to all that stuff.
SpiralElectricEffects.com,
of course.
theflatearth.band. That's it's me making music and pedals is kind of my life.
Yeah, well, please carry on as long as you possibly can, please, because you are amazing. Everything you seem to come out with is just better than the last. So keep going, please.
I appreciate that.
On behalf of all of us pedal nerds. Tom, thank you so much. I've really appreciated this. It's been a great chat, and I appreciate you giving up your afternoon for you to spend some time chatting.
Thanks for having me.
Not at all. It's been a pleasure, and I'll let you go. But yeah, thank you again, and I'll catch you again next time. And for everyone watching, thank you for staying to the end, hopefully, and let me know in the comments what you if you have any questions for Tom.
It's too long. They talk forever.
Yeah, if you skipped ahead, if you skipped to the end, or skipped through several chapters or whatever, just let me know in the comments. Anything that you wish I'd asked, put down below as well. I'd be fascinated to see what questions other people might have. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and again, thank you, Tom, for agreeing to come and have a chat.
My pleasure.
Thanks a lot again. Take care. I will see you again.